Hello, this is Catherine. Welcome back to Taking Tea with Catherine, or welcome to Taking Tea with Catherine. This is Taylor's of Harrogate's Blackberry Raspberry Tea. Not tea, but like infusion, because, tea is not really tea unless it's a certain plant. Let's be pedantic. So, it's a nice kind of summery tea, and today is the TBR for June 2020, so I thought maybe a slightly summery theme, but not so much the choice of books. Those are just books that I am choosing to read. I have chosen mostly chunky books. When I say chunky books, it doesn't mean that the books themselves that I'm going to read are very long. They might be part of collections of books, but I decided to pick mostly, not all, but mostly heavy books because I thought I'm still at home, so I don't need to be carrying books around with me because I really don't do much for e-reading. So that is not a great alternative for me right now. But so yeah, normally if I was going out a lot, I'd pick smaller volumes to be part of my reading choices for the month. But I thought, you know what? Let's have big chunky books to read if possible, and if things change, things change. We don't know. Everything is so up in the air right now when things are going to happen. And I live in New York, so especially. So I chose what I thought. Hi, Janie. I chose kind of a combination of different kinds of books because I decided not to do too many. No readathons really. I'm in a couple of book clubs, but one right now is currently active, and so there is a book that's a book club book. So that is the only one that I have that I didn't personally choose. It was chosen by the majority, and so I'm going to read that. But otherwise, I decided because next month is July, next month after June is July, and Jane Austen July is a thing that I really, really like, but it does require mostly hitting prompts for Jane Austen themed books. Not saying I wouldn't read anything, that's not because I did last year, but I'm really focused on Jane Austen. So I don't want to commit, as it were, to too many other things, readathons, anything else, buddy reads, and I have been watching some booktube videos about some really nice read-alongs that would be kind of up my alley, but the books that were chosen are books that, whether I wanted to read them or not, are not books that I have in my possession. And I have a couple of wonky reasons why my e-reader, like I said, I don't really enjoy it, but for some reason I'm having trouble taking library books out on my readers, my e-reader, my tablets, anything. There's some formatting issues, and I just threw up my hands and said, I already own so many books, and I'm still buying books, really, but I'm not going to pick books that I didn't necessarily want to 100% read for June. So I'm not going to, and, I will probably tune in. For, to see what people have to say about those books anyway, because just in case, maybe I'll want to read them in the future. But again, it's okay because I have plenty of other things that I want to read, and so let's get started. Now, I always try to choose at least one mystery for the month, and I decided to only choose one because I thought, even though I prefer to have two books that are considered mystery being read in a month, I don't know, that's just what I've planned for myself. I'm still in the middle of a Agatha Christie. I may finish it before the end of May, but I don't like to choose the next one. Well, I don't really have the next one that I had hoped to read anyway, so that goes for that too. But I could always change it up. But I may or may not do another Agatha Christie in June. But I thought, you know what? Let's leave my second choice to mood, or maybe the sudden opening of the city where I actually have to go in, and maybe I want to carry a smaller book, and then a lot of my mystery novels are smaller. This one isn't. This is a collection of 3 books that I'm only going to read one of, called Peter Lovesey. Bertie, the Complete Prince of Wales Mysteries. So there's 3, I think, books in here, yes. So I'm reading Bertie and the Tin Man, which I've checked, and it's about 200 pages of the size, and I think that's doable. If I really like it, maybe I'll read a second one, but I kind of think I'm just going to stick to one, and hopefully I will like it. But I love this volume, although I know that when I read books, I tend to take off the, oh, that's actually kind of nice too. What do you know? I kind of tend to take off the dust jacket because, unless it's a library book where it's stuck on, which actually I prefer because, it's not flapping around. Why do they do that? We need French flaps. But anyway, but I just love the look of this anyway, so that's not why I chose it, by the way. It didn't hurt, but it's, I just like the idea of, and I'd only heard about it when I saw this collection. I never heard about it before, but there's so many collections of mystery novels that I've never heard of. That the Bertie was the name of Queen Victoria's oldest son, who was the heir to the English throne. My glasses keep slipping down today. And, or the British throne, the empire at that point. And he was called Bertie, but when he became the king, he was Edward the Seventh, the Edwardian age. You may have heard of that. Some people kind of date back to the Edwardian age to like kind of the late Victorian era too, just like the transitional. It kind of feels like that, but I'm not getting technical. He was king from, I think it was 1901 to 1910 or 1911. I'm not exactly sure, but this is before that. So these books imagine him as someone who also solved mysteries. It's kind of an interesting thought. It's kind of like a combination of historical novels and mystery. So totally up my alley. And then here's another collection that I've read one of the books in this collection already. Loved it. And there's another one. And I have 2 of these novels already, but I'm choosing to read the one that I don't have separately anyway. And that is From the 3 Novels of New York of Edith Wharton's. And I am choosing The House of Mirth, which I've been planning to read for some time, and I shall. And this is, I think it takes up over 200 pages, maybe a little more than 200 pages, and it's pretty long. So it's sizable, but I think I can read it. And I've been trying, even though like there's a couple of classics that I'm still reading, so I'm not necessarily having to start any new classics, but I kind of would like to. Anyway, because if you saw my plans for 2020, which I know whose plans for 2020 actually worked, but if you saw these plans, my cat is tearing up my curtain. This is why I can't have nice things. Janie. She's so cute though. But anyway, it's really nice, really tasty tea. If you saw my videos where I was TBRing both books and authors that I hope to read this year, at least a little more of, I had so many plans to read a lot more classics. I'm not saying I didn't read any, but I thought every month I would read at least 2, and I was gonna be like amazing. By now I would have hit the Russian novelists and the French novelists. I would have done a couple of Trollops and a couple of Dickens, and I did a Trollope, and I'm still in the middle of Dickens, so I'm not completely off. But I feel like, despite having read some, I'm last in May, which I'm still technically sitting in May. I read The Secret Garden, which is a classic, so I'm not completely off, but I feel like I could do a little better. And The House of Mirth is a classic, and it's a New York classic. And this is the 150th anniversary edition. I don't know, is that of Edith Wharton or of Penguin Classics Deluxe editions? I don't know, but I'm very happy to read this. So there you go. All right, so I'll show you the book that my book club has chosen, and I know I sound like I'm not happy about it, and I'm not unhappy, by the way. There was another book, and I plan to still read it in June, because even though they may read it later on in the year, I'm like, you know what? If I already wanted to read it, I'm going to plan to read it anyway. But you know how you come together and you pick one, you vote, whatever, and I didn't vote for this book. And I've heard nothing but good things about it. So it's not like I'm not looking forward to reading it. It's just that it wasn't my choice. And one of the reasons why is because, man, I show you books about New York and suddenly because, um, the book we read for May took place in the American South, and I enjoyed it, but I thought 2 months in a row of that, I'm hypocritical, by the way. If they're both British novels 2 months in a row, I would have been fine with it, because that's my thing. But I was like, the American South is good, but I mean, do I need to read 2 months in a row? But be that as it may, that became a choice. But thankfully, when you see this book, let me show it to you now. The Invention of Wings by Sue Monk Kidd. I have not read any of her books, although I have over here. Coming out of the frame, let's see. The Secret Life of Bees. It's like right behind this postcard in a frame. The Secret Life of Bees. I keep meaning to read it, and I just haven't. And I've heard good things about it. I just haven't read it, you know. The Invention of Wings. I have heard very good things about. It takes place in the early 1800s. I'm sorry about my glasses. Keep falling. It's very annoying. It's just warmer, I think. Things get slippery. During the time of slavery, so that is an issue. And also about women's things. I don't know that much about it, but it is, I think, based on actual people who existed, so historical fiction is up my alley, so that's good, and I've heard good things about most of Sue Monk Kidd's works, so I hope to like it. But I also thought it was funny that these books, even though they're not exactly the same, you know, the books that my book club has chosen just kind of look alike. I don't know. Weird. But this is a different time period, so, and slightly different, I think, slightly different location and a different state. Did I even check to see where the state was? Charleston, South Carolina. Okay, so the other one was in North Carolina, and Charleston is a place I've always meant to visit, haven't yet. I haven't spent that much time in the South, unless you count Texas, which is kind of different. But and Charleston's one of the few places I've always really wanted to visit because, well, I heard the architecture is beautiful. It's a beautiful town, and there is a tea estate, garden, whatever, grown on an island off of Charleston. It's one of the first ones in America, so that's kind of cool. But I just haven't been. So why not read about it? And I hope I like it. I really do. So many novels this time around, isn't it? But we continue. Here's the one that I had wanted for book club, and again, just because it's not going to be read with the group in June doesn't mean I can't be a rebel and try to start it anyway. I've been wanting to read this since I got it. I got it in September when I was in San Diego, and I passed by. They had a ton of those little free libraries. We have them here too in New York, but man, it was like every other block, and they were well stocked too. And they had this, The Rules of Civility by Amar Towles. You know, that I could just pick up. Isn't that great? I mean, I paid it forward, by the way. I brought a bunch of books to a local free library and didn't take any, so that's my way of paying it forward. But nevertheless, I didn't have to pay for it. And I read his book, The Gentleman in Moscow. Says it right here, A Gentleman in Moscow. Last July, it was one of my few non-Jane Austen-y books that I read, and it was really good. I really liked it. It was another book club book, and that was actually probably more fitting for this time because he was in house arrest. Although a very genteel house arrest, but still, made me hungry when I was reading it too. And made me want to read French novels, I think, too, for some reason. And Russian novels. But anyway, so much for that. This takes place in New York in the, I think, Jazz Age. It says it right here. In the late night in 1937, 25-year-old Katie Content probably, is in a second-rate Greenwich Village jazz bar when Tinker Gray, these names, a handsome banker, happens to sit at the neighboring table, etc. So, I kind of like that idea. I miss Manhattan. I miss the Village. I know I can technically probably go there if I really, really wanted to, but nothing's really open for, like, fun, so, yeah. Let's read about it instead, right? I'm sorry, just hit her. just not real. It's a cover. Anyway, so that's good. I don't know if this is part of anybody else's book club because the Invention of Wings is an Oprah 2.0, which makes me a little wary because I read a lot of Oprah books in the past, and some of them are pretty good that I liked, but a lot of them, even though they were good books, they were just so depressing. And I'm like, I really don't want to be depressed, so that's why that book makes me a little bit nervous, but I'm okay. But the Rules of Civility, I'm really excited about, so I'm going to try that. So that's a lot of pretty much fiction. I really want to read more nonfiction, though, and I thought this is probably a good one for a summary kind of read. I've been trying to read a little more American history. I read some. I do read it. But I've had this writer's works around me for a little while now. And I'm like, I really need to start. I heard nothing about him that is bad, so that's good. David McCullough. I can't say the name. 1776. It says winner of the Pulitzer Prize, and I don't know if that means just the author or the book. Doesn't matter to me. I think just in general, if he's won the Pulitzer Prize, probably most of his books are good. But I don't know why I chose this one first. I just think I think I've been trying to just read about this time period, and I mentioned recently that I'm reading a little more up on Thomas Jefferson, and he'll be in here at some point, so that works out. So yeah, and then I have two other books, and again, I may read other books this next month. That I haven't chosen yet, but I mean, I haven't even included any nature writing because I did a lot of nature writing reading in May, and I loved it, and I do want to continue on that path. But I'm like, maybe not choose one. Maybe if I just one pops up in my head in June that I want to read, then I could just pick it up and read it. No pressure. So this is something I've been wanting to read for, well, not that long. But I read a book about King Alfred the Great of England, who was a Anglo-Saxon king before the Norman invasion, and which is the time period after the Norman invasion is what I'm more knowledgeable of, and I've read a lot more about, and I'm fine with that, but I do want to read more about that time. The time before the time before. And so when I bought this in a few months ago in the Strand. I missed the Strand as well. Alfred's Britain, War and Peace in the Viking Age by Max Adams. And this could be good. This could be amazing, and so wait, okay, 865. So that's, I was trying to remember exactly what time period this was going to be. I knew it was before 1000, but my brain wasn't able to function while I'm talking apparently. So that could be really good. There's so many other books I would like to read, more Victorian nonfiction, other nonfictions, but I am reading a book that takes place during Victoria's reign, so la la la. And now here's one that is a weird choice. It's the only small book that I've chosen. When I say small, I mean like Rules of Civility is not that big, but still. This sounds like a weird thing, but it's more about society and how it changed than hopefully about the actual problem. In the Wake of the Plague by Norman F. Cantor, The Black Death and the World It Made. So this book was given to me, another freebie, which is why I can forgive the underlining in there. I understand why people underline, and I think this was actually for school, so I understand that totally. And it was done in pencil, which I approve of. I know everybody has the right to do whatever they want in their books. But I hate when I buy a book, especially for more than $1, and it's like littered with stuff that's not even interesting. Okay. So I've read a little bit about the time of the plague, mostly from novels, but just from what I've read, and because I read a bit about the Plantagenets, I want to get back to that time period too. Many things I want to read about, but yeah. So the thing about that is there was a way that society was in the Middle Ages and medieval, Middle Ages. Yes, that this was how these were the people, and these were the people under them. These are people under, and this is what they did, and that was it. Pretty much. I'm not saying there was no upward mobility, but it was rare, and it was usually looked down upon. You know, you always hear these stories about people who just somewhat made it big, from maybe a tradesman to someone who worked closer to a king. And you see that even in the Tudor times, that was constantly harped upon. Oh, the butcher's boy, or the blacksmith's, whatever. It is just that snobbery, but it was probably even worse at this point, because it was all about knowing your place, and you did not rebel, you did not complain at all. When the plague happened, even though, horrible what's going on right now, but the plague really, it was beyond a killer. It was just, it was very gut-wrenching. Like, it wasn't just, okay, I know someone who had it, I know someone who died from it, that's terrible. I mean, so many people died from it that, it was just horrific. And there was probably even they didn't know how to protect themselves from it. At all. Like, I'm not even talking about vaccines. Just how to keep away. So people were just dying all over. I don't know how far it stretched, but I know that Europe got, I'm trying to remember how far it went. Yeah, well, I think this is about Europe. So it says it wiped out 1/3 of Europe's population, taking some 20 million lives. That, once the dust cleared and the plague started to, taper off, the plague did, I think, come back numerous times afterwards. But once this first hit was over, it was like, what? There was a complete gap in, the amount of workers that were available, the amount of places for everybody. So society changed so much as a result. And that's what this book is about. So I wouldn't mind reading a little bit up on that, because I've forgotten quite a lot of exactly how it changed. So we'll see. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I'm not sweating it. Everything's about, June is supposed to be a chill month. People say the same thing about July and August. I'm like, no, July is always crazy hot to me. And, you're like married to the air conditioner. And August is quite similar. But June is kind of like, June is usually nice. So I'm trying to make things chill for June. So I hope I've done so. If you guys have read these books, let me know. Let me know what you think. And let me know if there's any ones I specifically should plunge to read or should throw away. And if you like talking about these kind of books, if you like hearing cats in the background, and apparently birds. There's a bird in the background as well. My cat is getting very excited. Etc. And tea. Feel free to subscribe, because there's more where that came from. So, this is Catherine, taking tea with Catherine. Have a lovely tea and book-filled day. Goodbye.